year had started so strong, in fact, despite that loss to Minnesota, that they got a nice 4 or 5 page spread in Sports Illustrated, and a lot of people thought it was going to be kind of a breakthrough year. And then towards the end of the season, I think they had a home game against Wake Forest, which they played close but lost, and then they kind of fell off the end of the table. Unfortunately, you can't. I don't necessarily think judge and say, well, because of that, Minnesota has to win. It is the cliche about who's playing the best right now is what matters. And I think this is going to be a reasonably difficult game. I don't think this is going to be a blowout kind of game like we saw the first weekend. I don't think Clemson's the kind of team that's easy to blow out, but at the same token, they're not a team I don't think that's capable of enough firepower offensively to blow out the Gophers.
When you look at all the different matchups and, like you say, all the different storylines, what do you think might be the biggest key tonight looking at this game?
Well, the biggest potential problem, I think, for the Gophers would be Greg Buckner, who's kind of a swing man who plays a decent amount up front, which means logically the guy who would be guarding him would be Jacobson, who is a fairly lousy defensive player. So if Clemson, I think he's got to have kind of a breakout, massive game for them to have a chance. In addition, it wouldn't shock me at all that you would end up seeing Charles Thomas play in large stretches when it's more important for the team to play well defensively, and that he would be the one matched up on Buckner. Buckner's not huge, but he can be an effective scorer, kind of as an inside-out guy, a swing player. And logically, that matchup would go, in terms of the starters, to Sam. And Clem has not hesitated, as the team has played well, to jerk Jacobson if he thinks he's not playing well. By the same token, if their own offense is stagnant, then I think it's more likely that you'll see more of Sam, because he's a little bit better at creating a shot than Thomas is, and a couple of the other alternatives. Certainly, might be better at creating a shot than Miles Tarver.
Yeah, I should say so. I guess, like I say, I mean, we've talked this game to death. What's your take on Game 2, UCLA, Iowa State? I think most people are just, I mean, they've been overwhelmed and getting caught up in this UCLA Bruin fever. But I mean, my take is, I think, I've called Iowa State. I think they can win. I've gone out and said that, me, I like to take the underdog a lot. But I really do think they can play with UCLA and could make this a very interesting game tonight.
The biggest question, the biggest reason to not pick Iowa State would be they have problems. They have huge scoring droughts. They have problems. They're very good. They're good defensively, but they go through stretches where they really have a hard time scoring. And against UCLA, you're going to have to score some. Now, Tim Floyd, the coach, is smart enough to know that it's suicide to try to get into a full-court game with these guys, and that I still think they can be frustrated by a team that knows how to control the tempo of a game. And Iowa State's pretty good at that. I have a feeling UCLA might win this game. I think Minnesota has a better chance at doing something with them in that regard, because I think they have a little bit more offensive balance, and offensively can put more points on the board, and that's one of the problems Iowa State has had. But it will be a very interesting game, I think. For a national audience, that is the more interesting game. Not because I think it's any slight to Minnesota, but in terms of matchup and contrast, just like if Minnesota was playing UCLA in one of the semifinals, that would be the big game. I think the second game for a national audience probably will be a little bit more interesting. Plus, you got two teams. I mean, Clemson doesn't like to run. Clemson is not the most interesting team to watch.
Do you can you hear well enough if we take a phone call or two for you?
I'll try. I don't know.
All right, let's give it a shot.
I hear you. I don't know how it's going to be with a phone call.
All right, let's try it. Let's go to Delivery Guy, who is mobile. Delivery Guy, you are on the Fan.
Hello.
Hello.
What's going on?
This is it. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just calling my gal. We got burgers on the grill. Getting ready for the big game. And I think we're going to win because we're on a roll and we're deep.
All right, thanks, Delivery Guy.
All right.
It's pretty simple to say.
Pretty good contribution.
Yeah, it was a great contribution by Delivery.
Squeezed him in.
Yeah, well, you know how I am. Let's try. Let's try my second mom.
Hi.
Second mom, how are you?
I'm just fine. How are you, sweetie?
Good, thank you very much.
I was wondering, what about the referees then? Are they going to let the Gophers play their game?
Mr. Barreiro, did you hear that question?
Yeah, I heard that. Clemson what will be interesting to see is Clemson has made a big deal about that they thought they did allow Minnesota to push them around in the game in Puerto Rico. There hasn't been the suggestion that they played dirty, just that they played physical, and I think they're going to be real conscious of pushing back. So I actually think that both teams are fairly strong teams in that regard, and that one team is not going to be hindered that much more if the game is called very closely. I hope it's not. But, last week, it's something we've talked about, the foul problems they've had. Last week they handled that pretty well, although they weren't close games. They weren't games where they really needed any one player down the stretch because they were in control of both games. The key, again, is not to do the stupid fouls where it's not adding anything to their defense. And so far, I think, with the possible exception of Jacobson, they've been pretty good at not committing too many dumb fouls.
Second mom, anything else?
No, that's fine, and I also want to be number second mom on your T-shirt.
You will be, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
I'll give you a call at home.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Let's take another call for Dan Barreiro before we let him go. Let's talk to Bleed Black and Gold guy. You're on the Fan.
What's up?
Hey, how are you?
How you doing, boy?
We are doing terrific.
Yeah, my back's still feeling the effects of the Pats.
Yeah, slapping you on the back today over at Old Chicago. What's on your mind?
Do you remember what Clemson's record was when they were number 2 in the nation, when they were, I think it was 13, 14, and 1 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and then now they're 19 and 10. Don't you think they're in a little bit of a tailspin? They got bumped early from the ACC tournament. I mean, granted, they beat these last 2 ball clubs. Miami of Ohio is a gritty team. They're not that great. And if Shea Seals wouldn't have been in foul trouble, that game against Tulsa might have been a different story. I mean, my feeling is the Gophers should handle them. I think, personally, Temple plays stronger D than Clemson does. They may not have the offensive firepower that Clemson does, but they're a better defensive team, and we shredded up their defense. I don't think there's any coach in America that would want to match up against Temple in the second round. I bet you if you go ask Patino or anybody else, they wouldn't want to match up against Temple, and we handled Temple. We didn't. There was no doubt about it. The game was never in question. They cut it to 6-8, but...
Gotcha, Bleed Black and Gold guy.
All right.
Thanks.
See you.
What do you think?
Clemson's a better team than Temple.
Yeah.
And he answered his own question to a certain degree. Defensively, they may be comparable. Clemson is better offensively. Clemson plays in what this year has been a tougher conference. There's no question that they slumped at the end of the season. There's no denying it. They have not been a consistent team, and they have not really. I don't know that you can necessarily say on the basis of 2 victories that they've totally turned it around. But
well, you look at a lot of teams like that, Dan.
Exactly.
I mean, you look at, teams that will fool you. Maryland, same thing, but they did fall apart in the tournament. So I guess that's a bad example. But I'll use the example on the other end of the coin.
Well,
look at South Carolina. Everybody expected, this team might breeze to the Final Four, and look what they went 1 and out.
Yeah, there's no, like I said, there's really no, predicting on it. I think that they present. The biggest problem continues to be that they do pound on the boards. They're very good at doing that. And we have seen, as we've talked about ad nauseum the last few days, that can be a difficulty for Minnesota occasionally. If you look at the other way to look at the Tulsa game, he's right about Seals. By the same token, Buckner did a very good job on Seals. He frustrated Seals, and some of that you have to give to the credit of Clemson, that Seals was frustrated enough to continue to get himself into foul trouble and not be a factor at all at that game. Another thing is, at halftime, Clemson was shooting about 22%.
And 31 for the game was what they finished up.
31 for the game, and they won. And so the other way to look at it is, well, that's a team that shot abysmally poor and still found a way to win. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. They're not a great team. No, they're not. This is a team Minnesota, I think, is superior than and should beat. And
if they don't,
that people should be frustrated.
Yeah.
This is a game they should win.
You talk about the rebounding ability of Clemson. That's why I think another key to this game could be Courtney James and his rebounding ability. And he has played very well in the first 2 tournament games.
That's true. That's an excellent point. I think in the case of a couple players, they're not going to admit to this. I honestly believe that when they clinched the conference title, as much as they were continuing to play for a number 1 seed and so forth, I think they switched off a little bit, and it was, I don't want to say they got bored, but I don't think it was, I think it's harder to continually motivate a team when it's pretty much clear that they're going to get a top seed and that they've wrapped up the automatic berth. And what I sense is they were waiting for the tournament to start. And I think that's particularly true in the case of James. One of the things that bothers me about James is works in their favor right now, and that is I think he doesn't bring consistency of effort to every game. And over the long term, that would bug me as a fan and as a coach. But right now, it probably means he's going to play his best basketball because I think he is one of these kids who likes the lights being on, who likes the big audience, the national audience, likes having it all in front of him, and he has played extremely active. He's a very underrated player defensively. I think he's a very good defensive. Just fundamentally, he's a very good defensive player.
Take one last call for you. Steelers guy, you're on the fan.
Hello.
Hello.
Little goal for Thursday action.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Common, thanks for the help today.
Not a problem.
Appreciated it. As I'm trying to fit into my Joe Namath jersey to guarantee a victory, I see one problem in the way.
Okay.
Miles Tarver. Every time if I even miss part of a game and I turn it on and he's in there, it's bank off the rim, foul. Now that we're getting down, we're almost in the final 8, if everything goes well tonight, are they going to try to keep him out of there more, number one? And number two, looking forward to if UCLA beats Iowa State, do we have the manpower to slow that team down? Because I think with how fast they are, they will be able to beat us if we play their pace of ball the whole night. That's all I need to say, and answer, please.
All right, thanks, Steelers
Later,
guy.
man.
On the second part of the question, it's a very good observation. The answer is I think they are definitely smart enough to know that if they try to get into a full court game, 40 minutes with UCLA, they would have a major problem. I think that doesn't mean you don't run selectively off turnovers. I think you have to do that.
Sure.
UCLA turns the ball over a lot. And I do think that if you create a game where they're not flying up and down and they're not up, 15 points early, that they still can be frustrated. And that's what I would expect they would do. They would only run maybe off turnovers, run very selectively, and most of the time just try to run some patterns. On the other part of it, what was the first question?
Tarver.
Yeah. Well, he played 8 minutes last game.
Right.
I tend to think that the number one sign that this team will continue to be advancing is that his minutes will shrink, sort of by a percentage, by let's say 10%, with every advancement. Every game they get closer to the Final Four. Clem is fascinated with him. I think, though, it might be worth remembering this. I mean, you go back to the last time this team was in this similar position. They get to the Final 8 against Georgia Tech, and it is undeniable, as far as I'm concerned, that at the end of the first half, if you recall, he was just fascinated with, was it Mario Green?
Yeah.
And I think Walter Bond, he played that as his backcourt for about 5 or 6, 7 minutes. And a 12-point lead became a 2 or 4 point lead, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that cost him that ballgame. I mean, I honestly do. And I would hate to see him get in a similar position where it's a game where they're playing a really good team and they have some semblance of control, and he puts Tarver in and it costs them, 4, 6, 8 points. So far, they haven't been threatened enough to where it's really been a factor. The only thing I think he does is, he'll bang around a little bit. He's not a good one-on-one defender. He's got slow feet. And the other thing I think he's okay for is if these guys, by the way, if you want to talk zone, Clemson's very susceptible. They're not a good outside shooting team.
Right.
I would not be at all surprised if Clem plays a decent amount of zone because they've played it increasingly.
Early, they'll probably start with their regular man-to-man, you would think, though, right?
But I wouldn't be at all surprised if they threw it at him because it's been effective for them in spurts, and this is a team that doesn't have good outside shooting. And Tarver actually, outside on the zone, is just being tall and long does create some problems just standing there. It's like if you put a statue and just plopped it on the court,
right,
as part of his own defense, that can be effective because midget guards, and they have one of them, have a hard time seeing over. They have the shortest guard in the league since Muggsy Bogues.
Right.
They have a hard time seeing over people, whether they're stationary or not. So I hope he doesn't get himself in that position. But UCLA. Sooner or later, I mean, he might. If he's playing him 8 minutes, I don't think it's a problem. If he's playing him 8 minutes at a point where they have a chance to put a team away, yeah, then I think it is a problem.
I take it from just what you've said here in our short time here and just talking to you and listening to you and reading what you've done in the paper throughout the week, you're expecting a Minnesota and UCLA victories tonight.
Yes. Well, I have kind of gone back and forth on Iowa State, UCLA, and I think part of the reason I'm picking UCLA is I really want to see Minnesota play them.
I would too.
I think it'd be a terrific game. There would be a great deal. There is a great contrast between the two teams, and I would definitely. I think it's almost like, well, that would, I think, bring the best out in Minnesota, and I think everybody would sort of like to see that. So yeah, I would say so. Although I do think Iowa State's the kind of team that could scare them because they do know how to control. Tim Floyd is good at knowing how to control tempo, and that's the key to beating UCLA.
Thanks for helping us out.
All right, my boy.
We'll talk to you soon. Perfect. Dan Barreiro, 638. I'm the common man, Dan Cole, along with Eric Webster. We'll come back and we'll hear from Sammy Sigelman again here on The Fan.
What did I, Bob of Mornings here at The Fan, tell you? Gee, I hate to say I told you so about Chesapeake Bagels, but those of you who've tried them now agree with me, don't you? We're talking the best bagels and bagel sandwiches, hot or not, in the universe. If you haven't had the pleasure, haven't had the chance, we take our show on the road to a Twin Cities Chesapeake Bagel location every Friday morning.
Join Bobby Yates live Friday, March 21st at Chesapeake Bagel Bakery in City Center, downtown Minneapolis, on the first floor.
Frank Pillsbury, Fan Outdoors. You know, as the sun sets across one of the Minnesota's 10,000 lakes, you roast your Oscar Mayer hot dogs over a campfire and talk about the fish that got away. Summer in Minnesota, I love it. Cub Foods and Craft Foods will help you explore Minnesota this summer with brand new camping gear. Right now through March 29th, register at Cub Foods to win one of 28 great camping packages from Galleon's Trading Company, you know, the world's coolest sports store, or one of 2 Coachman tent trailers from Shorewood RV Center and Coachman Industries. How cool is that? Plus at Galleon's in Woodbury and Minnetonka or Shorewood RV Center in Anoka, you can register to win Minnesota vacation packages. Look for the details at the Explore Minnesota display featuring craft food products. Why not stop by Cub Foods on your way home tonight and stock up on Jell-O gelatin and Baker's coconut for your favorite Easter recipe. Cub Foods, spend less, get more. For information on Minnesota vacations, call the Explore Minnesota hotline at 1-800-657-3700 or in the metro area, 296-5029.
We're on the road with Fuddruckers to find out how you make the world's greatest hamburger.
A good burger starts with fresh ground beef.
Juicy, thick. I choose to put the hamburger on the top bun.
You gotta have fresh baked buns.
Kids eat for free.
Then I put the salsa on the hamburger.
Nice.
Then the onion.
Uh-huh.
I always put the onion on next. I find that it doesn't fall off that way.
I'm sorry, if you didn't say tomatoes, you'll have to start all over again.
Cheese?
Are you hungry yet? Jalapenos.
Jalapenos.
Huh?
What's that?
It tastes terrific, trust me. When I add that to the top bun, I find out it's upside down. I always pick up the burger with 2 hands. Then it comes to my mouth right side up.
I'm hungry.
Fuddruckers cooks it.
And then I tap it.
Kids eat for free.
Fuddruckers, the world's greatest hamburger!
Visit the Fuddruckers at the corner of North Snelling and County Road C and on County Road 42 in Nicollet Court. Remember, kids eat free Monday through Thursday after 4 p.m. at participating locations. 1 kids meal with each adult meal purchased.
Clemson's a great ball club. We know they matured a lot when we played them the first time over in Puerto Rico, and we have too. We're looking for this matchup coming to San Antonio. We know, and we've been scouting them. When we get back, we're going to scout and look at them. But we know they're a really good ball club.
That's Minnesota Golden Gopher 2 spot, number 2 guard, Bobby Jackson. Sam Sigelman again joins us from San Antonio. We're probably about, 10, 15 minutes away from the start of the game?
15 minutes away, Common, and the crowd is really filling in. A lot of Gopher fans. Some dignitaries of note. Mark Udoff, the president, or would-be president of the University of Minnesota, he takes in effect of July 1st. He drove down from Austin, Texas to see the game with his wife. And, of course, Governor Arnie Carlson made the trip down to San Antonio from St. Paul. So they're getting underway as the Gophers. You hear the fans in the background. They're getting ready to cheer on their team as they leave the floor for the last time.
Meanwhile, they're just underway in San Jose, Utah, Stanford. There is no score. They've each had a possession. Just thought I'd fill the folks in on what's happening in the West Regional.
Yeah, as you said, that's the first game of the evening. The Gophers will begin in about 10 minutes. Earlier, I did get a chance to speak with the forward for the Gophers, Sam Jacobson, and I asked Jacobson that how the Gophers team has changed since Clemson and Minnesota played basketball back in December.
I say yes. I think we've changed so much more in a better direction. I think as the beginning of the season, there's so many more things that we've learned, that we've experienced, that we're doing so much better now on offense, on defense, and I think basically that game's just false hope. Just looking back at that game, because we played so many more games and experienced, and got better in so many different areas with our basketball team.
So far in the tournament, you have kind of had an up-tempo offense, trying to run with the ball. What type of game should we expect against Clemson?
I think the same type of game. I think when we got opportunities, we're going to push the ball, and we rotate 9, 10 guys in off the bench, and we're just going to keep pushing the ball and try to wear them out. But of course, if it comes down to half-court situation, we're ready for that too. We got plays for that, and of course, the main key is defense, and that's going to be our focus in this game.
So far, assess your tournament. You had a really good first half against Temple. Second half, you weren't as hot. However, your team is so versatile and so deep, it didn't really affect the outcome of the game. Assess your game so far in the NCAA tournament, Sam Jacobson.
So far, I feel comfortable and confident with my game. I'm knocking down shots. It's basically getting opportunities. Clemson's a great team on defense. They keep teams down low and scoring, and it was tough to go against their zone like that. But I think we played it very well. We got open shots, and so far I feel comfortable with the way I'm playing and with the team's play.
Greg Buckner is going to probably be guarding you when you face Clemson. He did a pretty good job on Shea Seals Sunday. You've played against him twice prior to this game. Assess his game?
He's a great player. I think look at Shea Seals, and he did a tremendous job against him. And Shea Seals is a premier player, top prospect, NBA prospect, and held him 5 points. But for me, I'm just come out and play my game. I'm not worried about his defense, what he's going to do. I'm worried about what I'm going to do on defense and what I'm going to do on offense, personally, and to help the team get involved and get other people shots.
Sam, the mantra this year is that you got snubbed by the NCAA last year. It's kind of propelled your team to a Big Ten championship and #1 seed. One of the teams that basically snubbed you last year, two of the teams are Clemson and California for the last 2 spots. You get to play one of those teams. Is that extra incentive?
I don't think we're thinking about that so much as that they beat us down their place and we didn't get a bid for the tournament. I think right now that's not in our mind. Right now we're thinking just this next game and how we need to beat them. That was last year and this is now, and I think we're just looking forward to now and the future.
How does your team, how they've handled all this NCAA mess? It's a media spotlight event. How has your team handled it?
I think, we got very confident players and very humble players. I think we're taking it very well. I don't think any players are getting big heads or are getting nervous in the situations. I think our team's doing great with it. We're doing fine. We're just taking it as it comes and putting it aside, and when we hit the basketball court, it's strictly basketball.
And there you have comments from Minnesota Gold and Gopher Sam Jacobson from earlier today. Sam Sigelman with us in San Antonio, Texas, about 10 minutes away from the opening tap in San Antonio, the Gophers against Clemson.
Yeah, we're moments away. The Gopher Pep Band just played the national anthem to an adoring Gopher-dominated crowd, Common. And earlier, I also had a chance to talk with Eric Harris. The point guard scored 17 points in Minnesota's 10-point win over Clemson back in December. The first question I asked Harris is, what do you remember from that game?
Well, basically, the thing that sticks out in my mind is that we're both physical and aggressive teams. We both played that type of defense where you want to get after each other. So it's going to be a very physical game.
Talk about Terrell McIntyre and Merle Coe. They're two really aggressive guards, and they've had a pretty good tournament up to this point.
Yeah, Coe is very good. He likes to penetrate. He can shoot the ball well. And Terrell McIntyre, he's so quick, and he can get a lot of things done. He has a nice outside shot. So it's going to come down to me and Bobby being able to maintain them and just basically playing smart out there.
Eric, is it advantageous to play a team that you've beaten earlier in the season, or is it more advantageous to be on the losing side of the first game of a rematch?
Well, I think they might have the advantage because we beat them, and they're going to have that inside of them that we lost, so we want to come back and prove some. I think when we beat them in San Juan, we had the kind of motivation that they beat us at their place the last time, so I think they might have the advantage.
The motivation this year for your team is being snubbed by the NCAA last year. 2 of the 3 teams that were left for the last 2 spots was Minnesota, Clemson, and California. Clemson and California got in, Minnesota did not. You get to play Clemson now. Is that maybe a motivation for your team?
It can be a motivation, but I don't think guys are really using that as motivation. But if, like I said, we would have beat them at their place, we feel that we would have gotten to the tournament. But that's past, and that's the history. So we just want to deal with the present right now and hopefully advance into the final weight.
Eric, how has the team, in your estimation, dealt with the pressures of an NCAA tournament?
Oh, this team has dealt with it very well, I think, all year with all the media hype and everything. We just basically stayed within ourselves and the team, so I don't think the pressure has gotten to us, and we're still doing a great job to this point.
How does the team handle, each player handle the egos of minutes, points on such a team that's so well balanced? Charles Thomas can come off the bench and lead the team in scoring one night. Bobby Jackson can lead the team in 20 points. Sam Jacobs scored 29 points. You led your team in scoring when you played Clemson last time with 17. How does a team handle egos when it's so divided?
Well, I don't think egos are a problem at all with this team. Like you said, we're very deep, and guys realize that if we come out, everybody do what they have to do, then this team can be very successful, and I think everybody realizes their role. And when you're winning, that just makes things much better, because guys just want to keep winning, and, hey, if it's 5 minutes, I'm going to get 10 minutes, as long as I go in there and play hard with the time that I get. People understand that.
And there you have it. Those are comments from Eric Harris, who spoke with the fan Sam Sigelman earlier today. About 12 minutes before 7 o'clock, which means about 7 minutes away from the tap. Utah leads Stanford 4-2. That's with 15:07 to go in the first half. And Sam Sigelman joins us as we close out our program. And Sam, you've been around both teams all week, talking to people, reading things. What's your take on tonight's tilt?
I think the Gophers bench is as deep, if not deeper, than Clemson. And the quality of the players the Gophers bring off the bench are far better than Clemson. If Gopher fans aren't familiar, Clemson uses a lot of reserves, kind of a shuttle system. In fact, Yakira Turbe, the Totino Grace graduate, came in and out of the game on Sunday when they beat Tulsa 5 times in the first half alone. However, the players that they bring out the bench, the Tony Christies, they're not as good as the Charles Thomases. Therefore, the Gophers with depth will win this game in probably a slow-tempo game, about 67-57 common.
Beautiful. Sammy, and of course, I know you're picking UCLA in a matchup between the two clubs. Yep. I'm pulling the upset with Iowa State. I'll talk to you immediately following the game, or shortly thereafter. You'll probably try to dig up an interview or two and join me for the post-game show.
We will talk to you after the game.
Thanks, Sammy.
Take care, gentlemen.
All right, you bet. Sammy Sigelman in San Antonio. Dan Barreiro, we want to thank him. Eric Webster also, who had to slip out, but we thank Eric for helping me out. Don't forget, immediately following the Gopher game, 5 minutes from now is the tap. We'll host a Gopher post-game show along with Sam Sigelman and myself. And Chad Hartman should join us from Michigan, where he is with the Wolves. He will watch the game and join us with his comments as well. We'll take your phone calls. Stay with us. The Thursday edition of Fan Outdoors is coming up next.
The Golden Gopher Basketball Pregame Show.
Final Four! Final Four! Final Four! Final Four!
Hey, this is fantastic. I mean, we have the greatest fans, like I said, and they just want to cheer us on, and we know we're going to have a lot of people.
Brought to you by the Sports Page Bar and Grill.
I also think that they haven't seen us at our best. We didn't play well against them in the first matchup, and we're two physical teams, so you can expect a war.
To be a #1 seed in the Sweet 16, that's an incredible accomplishment.
And Courtyard by Marriott, the hotel designed by business travelers.
We've got great respect for them, and we know how hard this game will have to be played.
I'm just high right now. I'm just on fire.
I think Clem's done an unbelievable job, in my opinion. I'd vote him National Coach of the Year.
Minnesota has won the Big Ten Conference.
Rosedale Dodge beats them all.
This weekend.
Yeah, there's no question about that. The one thing that, the last thing I'll throw at you before I let you go is...
You're good. You're good without me, right?
Oh, yeah, we're fine. Yeah, we got full phone lines, and Sammy's coming back, and we'll be fine. Unless you want to hang out, but I know you said you had to get going.
I can stay for a little bit.
Okay, this is what we'll do. I'll throw this at you. We'll go to break. We'll come back. We'll talk to Mike, Hop, John, and the Lollipop Man. But I'll throw this at you. People were concerned throughout the season about, Jacobson not playing enough minutes, Jackson substitution patterns, bringing guys out. But I'll tell you what, that experience for Lewis and for Charles Thomas, what they played all during the year, I think, paid off today because they had to come up big because they were without John Thomas in that game, and they were without Eric Harris, and they needed those guys to play strong tonight, and they did.
I think you make a very astute point. It's a situation where you don't know when you're going to need those guys. And when Jacobson kind of slowed down a little bit, even though they didn't have big numbers, I think they made some crucial plays.
Yeah. Well, Lewis had a huge rebound in the second overtime, a huge rebound.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Quincy really came up big. Give Clemson credit. When Charles Thomas had played so well in those 2 previous games, they said, Charles, if you're going to score, get by us, beat us on the dribble. And Charles Thomas really can't do that right now, and he did not do it tonight.
Let me put you on hold, and this is what we'll do. Chad is in Pontiac, Michigan. I'm here in Minneapolis. Mike, Lollipop Man, Hop, and John will take a short break. We'll come back, and we'll take your phone calls. This is KFAN's Gopher postgame show on The Fan.
Rosedale Dodge beats them all.
This weekend.
With double rebates.
Double.
Up to $3,000.
Double rebates.
What'll that do to my payment?
Lower it.
A lot.
New 97 Neon Coupes, $156 a month.
$156.
It's the double rebates that do it.
Double.
New Neons with AM/FM cassette, automatic, air, and more, $156 a month at Rosedale Dodge.
And not just neons.
Rosedale doubles every rebate.
Double.
New 97 Caravans, $292 a month.
$292.
Or an upgrade Caravan, including 4th door, AM/FM cassette, rear defog, and more. $292 when you lease from Rosedale Dodge this weekend.
Double rebates.
Double Dodge rebates. And payments cut practically in half.
This weekend.
At Rosedale Dodge, 35W and County Road C.
Call 633-5455.
Rosedale Dodge, your Dodge deal beaters.
Double. 36-month lease, total payments, Caravan 10512, Neon 5616, total do-it delivery 1706 Caravan, 1696 Neon, 12,000 miles per year plus title, tax, tag, and duck fee.
Tanya beats me sometimes. She's a good shot, of course, but I don't want to tell nobody that.
Kirby Puckett talks about good times, pool, and Peter's Billiards.
The first time I played pool, I had to be maybe 13 years old. A good friend of mine, his dad owned a pool hall. And so it was our job to go over there and kind of clean up the store at night. And in between cleaning the pool hall up, we kind of sneak in about 20 or 30 games. I guess that's what made us all pretty good pool players. But my other buddies, they had pool tables in their basement. 2 of them did. I mean, we couldn't have one. I mean, I lived in an apartment all my life. I didn't live into a house until I bought my house here. I heard about Peter's Billiards. Like, I used to drive by there sometimes. I said, I'm going to go in here. And so I finally got a chance to order my own pool table and play on my own pool table. I got to play pool whenever I wanted. I mean, I'd come home from baseball games at night. And Tanya and I would go downstairs and just play pool for hours. I have an old housing, a 9-foot old housing, and you can't ask for more than that.
Peter's Billiards, the game room store. Foosball, electronic dartboards, bar stools, and pool. 62 Crosstown at Lindale in Minneapolis.
I'm talking to Melissa, who recently got a brand new truck at Minor Ford. Melissa, sounds like you tried quite a few dealerships before finding out Minor Ford could help you out.
My fiance and I tried all the dealerships in town. We had a bad vehicle financial situation that we needed to get out of. All the rest of the dealers in town told us that they couldn't help us at the time and told us to come back when we could fix the situation that we were in right now. We needed a solution right away. We went to Minor Ford, and matter of fact, Bob, the general manager over there, kept checking in on us and just letting us know and assuring us that everything would be okay, laid out the options on the table. We picked an option that would be good for us, and needless to say, we own a Ford F-150.
Like General Manager Bob Lewis says.
We want to be the best Ford dealer in the Twin Cities. We don't want to be the biggest. We want to be the best.
The major difference is the minor details. Minor Ford, 694 and Silver Lake Road, New Brighton.
Tom Lehman's premier golf event is now one day better. The Dayton's Challenge, presented by Dockers and Northwest Airlines, is now 2 days of great golf and entertainment. Starting Sunday, June 29th at the Minneapolis Golf Club, you can check out 30 PGA Tour players as they take part in the Lawson Software Pro-Am. That evening at the Minneapolis Hilton Towers, it's the Born Information Services Dinner Gala. At the live auction, you'll have a chance to bid on trips from Dayton's Travel to the 4 majors and the Ryder Cup. Then Monday morning, June 30th, 15 of the PGA Tour's best players will be competing for over $350,000 in prize money at the Dayton's Challenge. Tom Lehman, Steve Jones, Tim Herron, Payne Stewart, and Davis Love III all will be on hand for clinics and autographs. Plus, you'll see the tour's best up close. After all the great golf action, it's the Timber Lodge Steakhouse Blues Festival. Tickets are limited and going fast. Call Tom's Tea at 866-7833 for 2 great days of golf and entertainment. Call Tom's Tea, 866-7833. The Dayton's Challenge, presented by Dockers and Northwest Airlines, June 29th and 30th. Other participants include the Luther Auto Dealerships, Arcady Financial, and Hormel.
And the clock going to
tick down, and Minnesota's got to get a final crack at winning this game. 9 seconds, 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds. Don't foul. 2 seconds. Shot up. Shot is no good. We're going to second overtime. We're going to second overtime. As long as they've got the basketball, Tigers can do nothing about it. The shot up from the front good. That just about ices it. With 42 seconds left and Minnesota up 6.
Another one bites the dust.
That was the voice of Jim Phillips. He is the voice of the Clemson Tigers, WGOG, and that did ice hit a Bobby Jackson three-pointer. He finishes with 36 points and 9 boards. And the Minnesota Golden Gophers with a double overtime victory tonight. They defeat Clemson in the Sweet 16. Final score in double overtime. Well, I had it here. What was the final score? I had my scoreboard. Got to get to my scoreboard. I'm very screwed up right now, folks. Hold on. 90-84. 90-84 was the final score. Let's go back to Pontiac, Michigan. And with me now, Flip Saunders, coach of the Wolves.
Carmen, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good now.
Yeah, it was.
I wasn't feeling too good when we got down 6 in that first quarter, first overtime.
No, it didn't look very good. As a matter of fact, at that point, I was scanning the newspaper and the bracket, looking for my new club, and I had kind of settled on Tennessee Chattanooga.
Well, I'll tell you what, what usually happens in these tournament games, you have to have great guard play.
Yeah.
And I think what happened is guard play brought Clemson back in the game, and guard play, in reality, ended up winning for the Gophers down the stretch with the play of Jackson, the play of Sam Jacobs. Both those guys, Jacobs and both those guys playing extremely well. So, big question is now to see how bad Harris's shoulder is for the next game against probably Kentucky.
Or UCLA.
I mean UCLA. I'm thinking ahead, I guess, to the Final Four.
You're looking already to the Final Four.
I already got us marching all the way down to Indianapolis.
Well, I don't blame you there. Now, yeah, it's funny you should mention the guard play because in the first half, the Gophers guards played outstanding. You looked at the backcourt points, and they had them outscored like 31-8. But then McIntyre, who was very cold in the first half, really got hot in the second half, and that's what brought the team back into the game.
Right. It was a great game to watch. I mean, great. As far as there was a lot of runs. I think the one thing I'm sure that Barnes losing the game, and I'm sure if Minnesota would have lost, Clem would have looked, is that both teams, I thought, tried to run the clock down when they got ahead and became pretty conservative. And it's funny because Minnesota did it as far as in regulation, and they let the shot clock wind down and got some bad shots off and didn't score, and Clemson made their run. And then when Clemson seemed to have the thing pretty much in hand, they did the same thing in the first overtime and gave Minnesota an opportunity to come back.
Absolutely. Now, how do you see UCLA-Iowa State matching up?
Well, I think it's going to be great. I think the big thing with UCLA is they are so athletic. I do think that Tim Floyd does a great job coaching and really can control tempo. If they can control their boards, they have an opportunity. I do definitely think that Minnesota matches up better with Iowa State than they do UCLA. I think our big people are going to have to play better against UCLA than we played tonight. I think that we had some problems as far as rebounding the basketball tonight, and it hurt us a little bit.
Now I'm going to run some calls. You can either stay with me, turn it back over to Chad, or if you guys are calling it. All right, real good. Let's Flip Saunders will stay with us here, and let's go to Mike. Mike, you are. Whoops. What happened to Flip? Flip, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, very good. Let me go up here. Mike, you there?
This is Mike.
Mike, you are on with Flip Saunders here on KFAN.
Hey, yeah, comment. I need a moniker here. Can I get one?
Yeah, you can get a moniker, and then what's your question?
Hey, I need Rat. Refs are terrible guy.
Yeah. Well, I think they kind of evened out. You weren't happy with the officiating.
I think that's crap. Excuse my language, but I tell you what. I got two questions. What are the Gophers going to have to do to be able to get a game evenly called? And second, if there's any Clemson fans out there that have any round-trip tickets to San Antonio to sell, let me know, man, because I am willing to buy.
Thanks.
Well, I tell you what, I think the referee. I thought that the one they had a lot of problems calling the ball out of bounds tonight. I thought there was about 7 or 8 calls where they were looking at each other. They didn't know who the ball went off of a lot of times. But I'm sure Clemson people. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the foul situation at one point. Clemson had 19 fouls and Minnesota had 8 or whatever in the second half. So I think overall the refereeing really wasn't that bad. I think that he really let the teams pretty much play as far as inside for most of the game.
Chad?
Yes, sir.
Your feeling on the officiating? We had Rat Guy.
I heard Rat Guy.
Yeah.
There was no conspiracy against the Gophers. Flip's 100% right. I mean, the Gophers were at the line right away in the second half. I mean, you can't complain about the calls. It was a game where I thought most of the time they let him play, and again, it pains me to agree with Flip, but I mean, those calls on the end line, I would love to just sit there at some point in the summer when there's nothing going on and just look back on this game, because everybody's going to remember it and say, okay, they said it was Clemson's ball, but it really was Minnesota. They blew those calls all the time, but not at a point where they cost either team.
I'll tell you one thing I thought they did do. I thought that they really let both teams camp in the lane a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought there could have been a lot of 3-second calls that they really didn't call and kind of let the teams pretty much play. But it was.
But I like it when they do that. Would you rather see that too? I mean, instead of having those 3-second calls.
I think what they did tonight, which is nice, they let the players decide who was going to win the game. They didn't try to make the call that was going to really determine it. The only thing that I thought was a blatant call is I thought that the halftime 2 points was definitely a bad call that they gave to Clemson. No question.
Let's take a phone call from Lollipop Man. You are on the Fan.
How you doing, Common?
We're doing well.
Saunders and Mr. Harmon. I agree with Mr. Flip Saunders there. I thought that they had suspended the 3 second in the lane there.
There were some times we watched it. I'll tell you where we also saw it. I don't know how much you saw it in Minneapolis, but here in Detroit, they switched over to the Utah game. And at the end, Keith Van Horn was in the lane for about 15 seconds. And it must have been, I'm sure, Common, you saw very little of the game, but the Utah-Stanford game wasn't quite the Gopher level, but it still was a great game.
It's kind of funny because I've said this all along, but you look at their game and compare it even to the NBA game at times, the college referees sometimes let the game be more physical at the college level than they do really at our level, as far as, a lot of the hand touching and things like that.
Thanks for the phone call, Lollipop Man.
Yep.
Let's take a phone call from Hop. Hop, you are on the Fan.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
What's going well? What's on your mind?
Do you watch the game on TV tonight?
Actually, I saw it in San Antonio, and then I just got back.
Tell you what, the expenses, we spare none to fly you right back.
Yeah.
What service, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we saw it.
Oh.
Okay, great. Mike, you are on the Fan.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Common.
Yes.
Here's the benchmark that you finally made the payday.
Yeah.
You got Flip, you got Chad there. You just got it going on.
Yeah, we got it going on. This is the place to be.
Sure. You were let go today.
Hey, a couple things. First off, it would be a travesty if the game would have been determined by that terrible halftime call.
I was saying that at the end of regulation.
Flip Sid Saunders now with us. That doesn't matter if it's 20 minutes later.
Right. Oh, okay, I got a question, though, guys. Hypothetical question. Let's say, God forbid, Harris is in bad shape. So do you maybe accelerate the plan of maybe what Clem has cooking with Quincy and Sam together, slide Sam, to the other slot? Work it like that? What do you think?
I think what he'll do is he'll basically go combination. He'll do that somewhat. He'll play Thomas somewhat. I think what he'll do is he'll basically shorten his rotation, probably one player, but he'll still play all. He'll play Quincy. He'll play Sam. He'll play Bobby. He'll play Thomas. From that standpoint. But knowing how Harris is, I would imagine that they got 2 days to prepare, unless that thing, which it didn't look like he totally separated it. I would think that in 2 days, knowing that this is the final game to go to the Final Four, it's going to be pretty tough to keep him out from playing.
Here's what I do, Common. I approach Colin, I say, here's your opportunity. You sign now and you play in that game Saturday.
Yeah,
he can play 3 games in a row.
Exactly.
And if he
tonight, he can play. Or you can play Saturday.
Or Cameron Taylor.
Exactly, the 5th grader Cameron Taylor.
Cameron Taylor could be. So what would you do? Let's say he can't play. What would your starting 5 be?
If it was me?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot depends on who they play. If they play UCLA, then I think you go with Quincy so you can be a little bit bigger, as far as up front to match up with with their athletes a little bit. And I think the other thing is Thomas is pretty comfortable coming off the bench as Quincy is, but I would think that you might want to go that way as far.
But you move Bobby over to the point, right?
You move Bobby over to the point.
Same way if it's Iowa State. Now Holloway is a different player from Dollar, and they're more of a a half-court team, but you really don't have a choice, do you? I mean, you pretty much have to start Quincy Lewis.
Right, I think he's probably the next guy in line. The other thing is Thomas hasn't been real healthy either. So you got to probably you want to limit his minutes as much as you can. Kind of monitor him. But I think Harris is going to play.
And that's why it's key, Common, and I'm sure Sammy will check in with us the next 10 minutes to receive some sort of report on Eric Harris and see how bad he is.
Chad Hartman and current Timberwolves coach and former Gopher Flip Saunders with us.
That doesn't sound very good.
Yeah, Colin, do you have some words for
it? Sounded like tomorrow.
Oh, no.
I'm going to be looking for a job.
No, that wasn't how I meant to say it.
Either beat the Pistons or let's make a change.
I wouldn't go as far as to say that. Bobby Jackson, 49 minutes, 11 for 20 from the floor, 12 for 13 from the free throw line, 9 rebounds for 36 points. Jacobson, 37 minutes. He was 9 of 18 from the floor, 7 of 9 from the line. He had 4 rebounds, and he had a grand total of 29 points. After that, just the points sporadic.
Right.
The next high score, James, was 7.
It's pretty tough to rip the substitution pattern on Bob.
Yeah.
He played all but 1 minute, and the only reason he sat him down is because he had the technical foul.
Mm-hmm. No, like I said, the guards played extremely well, and I think the one thing was I was really surprised. I thought Quincy would have knocked down those free throws to pretty much end it, But hey, for these guys, they've accomplished a lot this year. I don't think at the beginning of the year, except for you, Common, you might be the only guy.
I was the guy.
Predicted them being as far as right now having one game to get to the Final Four.
You're right, Flip. That's exactly how I called it.
If he really was with you, he'd be there Saturday night.
That's a good point too. You think you can make it back somehow?
Probably not.
Douglas, you're on the fan.
Thanks. I can't blame the refs, but I can blame the inside game of Thomas, James, and Winter. I mean, they were dreadful.
Yep.
No rebounding and 0 scoring.
Yeah, I think I think there's a couple things. I think number one, they're going to have to play a lot better, especially if they play UCLA. Because their front line is active and their front line can score a lot of points. The other thing is I think you have to realize I do believe that Minnesota's offense was pretty much perimeter oriented. They ran a lot of they ran some high pick and rolls, and they really didn't outside of maybe trying a couple high-low situations. They didn't really look to get the ball to their big people too much inside either.
Here's where I thought they should have scored, Flip. I agree with you about how they ran their plays, but they missed enough shots tonight. I'm sure Common has the box score by now. They probably missed 40 shots if you're going to play a game that long. If Courtney James is that big and John Thomas is that big and Trevor Winter and as successful as they have been, how about some putback shots?
All the Gophers do is win. It doesn't matter. In regulation, in overtime, in double overtime, in San Juan, at Williams Arena, Chrysler Arena. It doesn't matter. Bring them all. Bring them all on. Gophers win in double overtime. I'm Dan Cole with our KFAN Gopher post-game program. Sam Sigelman of the Fan is in San Antonio. He should join us not long from now, hopefully with a status report on the health of one Eric Harris, who, according to the CBS announcers, had a separated shoulder. Whether that's the case or not, he went down late in the second half. With about 6-7 minutes, I believe it was, to go in the second half after a pick, and he slammed into one of the Clemson players, fell down, left the game, had an ice pack on his shoulder. We're assuming that's what it is a separated shoulder. Hopefully we'll find out more from Chad, or from Sam, that is. Just had Chad Hartman of the Wolves, along with Wolves coach and former Gopher, Flip Saunders. Halftime, Kentucky leads St. Joe's 39-27. 39-27. Meanwhile, Iowa State leads UCLA 23-13 with 11:15 to go. So those that were anticipating that UCLA meeting the Gophers, of course, this game far from over. We saw the Gophers with a 15-point lead in the first half and watched it go to double overtime. Clemson almost winning. Now we're seeing Iowa State with right now a comfortable 12-point lead over UCLA. Let's go back to the phone lines and talk to James. James, you're on the Fan.
Coley.
Yes.
What's going on?
This is it. Just rooting on the Gophers.
Couple questions for you.
Sure.
First of all, Al McGuire.
Mm-hmm.
Why does he have a job?
You're not high on Al?
Well, here's his comment that I like the most. He said, "Well, Bobby Jackson, I think he's the best player in the MVP in the Big Ten."
Yeah, I know. We talked about that line here too. Exactly right. He goes, "I think he's the most valuable player in the Big Ten." Yeah,
that's the award they gave out about a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Here's the other question I got. Here's the thing that scares me about the Gophers.
when you got Winter and you got Tarver and you got James on the floor, the other two guys are running around waiting to catch the ball because none of those guys should ever shoot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And if those two guys are covered, I mean, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, and what happened was Thomas with the John Thomas with the foul problems. He didn't play a lot there at the end. He didn't foul out of the game, did he?
I don't think so.
No, he didn't foul out. That's why I was waiting for him to come back in, and down the stretch it was Trevor Winter, and I'm not sure why, because usually Thomas is in there, but in that second overtime, that was Trevor Winter in the game. With Harris out of the game, they certainly were in trouble, and Bobby Jackson couldn't be his aggressive self, really, defensively, because of his foul situations. There was a couple times I think he didn't even crash the boards as well. For the same reason, but you're right. And Trevor didn't. That 1 7-footer. I was surprised he didn't take that shot. I think he was a bit tentative there.
What about Tarver?
Well, Tarver had an important rebound early in the game, and yeah, Tarver's not. He had a bucket he probably should have had from right underneath. He's a bit scary.
Yeah, that's the only thing that scares me from these guys going all the way is that if those three guys are on the floor together, the other two guys are just running around waiting to get the ball. So.
Thanks for the phone call.
Thanks, Cole.
I appreciate that. We'll get to the other phone calls here in just a moment, but first we will go live to San Antonio, Texas, where the fan Sam Sigelman is. Sam, thanks for joining us again.
How you doing, Common?
I'm doing very well. I guess the big question is the health of Eric Harris. Have you found anything out?
Eric Harris, they believe I guess the way to put it is they're under suspicion that it's most likely a separated right shoulder. However, they're going to take a look at it tonight. We'll know more tomorrow morning.
So we'll know nothing more tonight, whether he'll be ready to go. We will not know the severity of the injury until sometime tomorrow.
You are correct. You guys have been talking a lot about Bobby Jackson's play.
Right.
Obviously, he had to take over the brunt of the point guard play after Eric Harris went out. And at 7:43 to go in the second half, he committed his fourth foul. And in the press conference after the game, by the way, Jackson did play 49 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. We had the box here. 49 minutes, Sam. 11 for 20, 12 for 13 from the floor, and 9 boards.
49 minutes, 36 points.
Yep.
And after the game in the press conference, he was asked, "How did you feel after you caused the fourth foul of the game?"
I was kind of mad because the coach pulled me out, but he told me to stay with it, and when I get back in, I got to do the things to help this team win. I got kind of frustrated when the ref called a tee. I really didn't say nothing, but he teed me up. But coach set me down, and he told me when I go back in, I got to help this team win, and that's what I did. I just do whatever coach asked me, and I go out there and give him my all. This team played really great ball tonight, and Clemson, get a hats off to them, like Coach said. They took us to the max, which is a great ball club, and like Coach said, this is one of the best basketball games I ever played in, and it just feels good to win.
Best basketball game he's ever played in, and who could blame him, Common?
Yeah, it was an outstanding basketball game. Did you have the sense, Sam, that obviously Iowa State is having a very good first half against UCLA? Sam, you can hear it in the background. Iowa State leads 27-18 with about...
This could be a godsend for the Gophers if Iowa State holds on to this one.
Yeah, well, I still think the Gophers, if they don't have Eric Harris, I think they're going to be in some trouble against the UCLA team. I think that would be troublesome for them. Sam, did you ever get a sense that the Gophers were not going to win this game? You know me, how I give up on teams pretty early. I thought they were in some trouble when there was a couple minutes to go in that first overtime and they were down 5-6 points. I mean, I thought this is it. It's been a nice run, but it's coming to an end right here, and they somehow found a way to win.
Well, Clemson was leading 80-74 with a couple minutes to go in the first overtime, and
right.
Clemson only scored 4 points after that, and Minnesota ended up with 90 points. They outscored them by 12 to finish the second overtime, I guess, to finish the game. This is a game where it took so many twists and turns. I think it's unbelievable the way the Gophers started the game, shooting 87% from the field, only missing 2 of their first 17 shots, and then making 2 of their next 17 shots at one point in the game. You can't explain what happened here today. It's very difficult because it was so. twists and turns. I mean,
well, it was actually a tale of two halves because obviously the Gophers dominated the first half until the last couple of minutes when Clemson made it a ball game. It looked like the Gophers were going to blow them out. They cut it to 6. Then the second half it was almost opposite, where the Gophers shot so well in the first half and their backcourt completely outplayed Clemson's. It was almost a turn of event because not that Jackson didn't play well, but McIntyre got hot and their backcourt started to play well, and the Gophers went ice cold from the floor.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and Clemson ended up shooting 45% from the field and Minnesota 46. So it was the statistics show it. It was a very, very close game. And one fun thing that we were keeping track of in Media Row was Tom Weidman, the big center for Clemson coming off the bench.
Right.
Clemson is 11-0 when he leads the team in rebounds. Well, he had 10 tonight, by far leading the team with rebounds. So
and they pick up.
Obviously, that's not an important statistic, but it was something fun to watch. But this game had way too many twists and turns, and I think what I said to you initially after the game, I think this could become a character builder. It was echoed somewhat in the locker room afterwards. I think that's the way Minnesota is taking it. Of course, Sam Jacobson and Bobby Jackson really the only ones really excited over the victory because they were the only two Gophers that really had a great game.
Yeah.
John Thomas basically non-existent, 0 for 1 from the field in his 27 minutes of play before he had actually 4 fouls, one of 4 Gophers with 4 fouls. He only had 6 rebounds, and a couple of them were gimmies. He didn't show up tonight. Courtney James had a rough game, only scoring 7 points. So Minnesota's got to feel semi-lucky, and they obviously finally found out that their stars can come to the forefront when need be. Because as you know, Charles Thomas, off the bench, led the team in scoring in their first 2 NCAA games.
Sammy, I know you're very busy and got a lot of work to do. I appreciate it.
Now let's take some calls. Let's go.
Oh, you want to take some calls?
Yeah, let's.
Outstanding.
Hold on line 7 and pick up line 5 and let's go.
Now let's do what now? Line 7, all that. I think he's got it all figured out in there. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on. Abbott, are you ready in there for phone calls for Sammy? You got this all set up. Let's go.
Let's put me on hold on line 7 and bring me up on line 5. Let's
Beautiful.
Go.
Dean, you're on the fan. Hello, Dean.
Let's run some calls, guys. Come on, let's go.
Hello, Dean.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point about the Gophers. They seem to, when they were trying to get the ball inside, they were having a lot of problems because they were trying to load the post from the top side over the top, and they couldn't make the lob pass. Clemson played excellent defense. They looked almost as good as we play defense out there, and it's nice to see that the Gophers can come back yet again. And I hope my fingernails are back for Saturday night.
Thanks, Dean. I appreciate that. Yeah, Sam, he makes a good point because the Gophers did try to do that lob, and they tried to lob it down low and on a number of occasions. But you kind of expected that. Clemson's a very good defensive team.
Yeah, I think, we've talked about it. Clemson's a very good defensive team. You saw what they did to Tulsa. That just proves how well they are defensively. And what I think hurt Clemson in the end was their outside shooting. They don't have a good outside shooter.
No.
They don't have a great scorer. McIntyre is a very decent player, but he's not a great scorer. Greg Buckner, who can also score a lot of points, led Clemson tonight with 22. He's a decent scorer. He's not a great scorer. And
you're right.
And obviously Minnesota, those guys were hitting from the outside from the beginning of the game.
Particularly Jackson, because Jacobson went very cold late in that game in the overtimes. He had some trouble, but Jackson.
I think Clem's theory actually proved true tonight that Jacobson, he played his 37 minutes. We got to see him play 37 minutes, and he obviously was not the same guy from the first 7 minutes of the ballgame.
Let's take a call from Chris. Chris, you're on the fan.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
First-time caller. I just had a couple questions. First off, do you feel that Bobby Jackson or Eric Harris have any potential for the NBA? And number 2, were the Gophers' inside game, were they just off tonight, or was Clemson's front line that tough?
Thanks, Chris.
I'll hang up and listen.
All right, perfect.
I didn't get to hear what Flip had to say. I understand you spoke with Flip Saunders.
Right.
What did he have to say about Bobby Jackson?
Oh yeah, they were amazed by Bobby Jackson and thought he played very well. Both Flip and Chad, and I guess the entire coaching staff watched the game. And I think everybody feels Jackson's got a chance to play in the NBA. The thing is at 6'1", he's going to be a little smaller now. Sammy, I don't know. I think he has an NBA body.
I would say anywhere between a CBA, NBA body.
Yeah, CBA and an NBA body.
One
and
knock on him, though, Common, tonight. 36 points, 9 rebounds. And since when Eric Harris went out of the game, he was basically the point guard the last 17 minutes of the game. 0 assists.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
That's not, and I know they had to go to a different offense because Jacobson and Jackson were the only guys hitting the field goals. But still, as a point guard, you should, if you're playing 17 minutes, you should have at least 2 or 3 assists. Come on.
I think to answer this question, I think both have a chance to play in the NBA. They would never be superstars, but they could both be workman-like players that could make a living in the NBA. And Jackson, who knows? He's very, very quick. If he could really bone up on the point guard position, that's a possibility. His second question, I think the big men are better than they showed tonight.
Yeah.
I don't think the big men for the Gophers are, they're not outstanding, dominating big men. But I think he's right. You have to give a lot of credit to the Clemson players.
Yeah, John Thomas looked horrible, and I think a lot of that has to do with like the aforementioned Tom Weidman coming off the bench. He just came in there and banged the heck out of those guys in the middle, and Harold Jamison did the same, although Jamison only played 27 minutes and scoring 3 points. Defensively, he was pretty good, and that's one thing Clemson does. You notice they rotate their players in and out, trying to get a lot of fresh players. And although their bench isn't that great, they're capable of playing very physical, and that's what they did.
Let's take 2 more phone calls before we call it a night. Let's go to Matt. Matt, you're on the Fan.
How you doing, Kevin?
Doing well, thanks.
All right, well...
Hello?
Hello?
Do they have any preparation there or what?
Say that again. We missed your question.
What's the deal with the announcers?
Hey, give me...
I went to Marquette 10 years ago.
Right.
And El Bagar is like a hero to me, right?
Right.
But when Charles Thomas is on the line, they call him Charles Tomlinson.
Yeah.
And they don't even know where Tebe was from.
Yeah.
And they don't even know... They don't know nothing.
Okay, thanks for the phone call. I'll defend him a little bit. I mean, when you're watching a lot of different teams throughout the year, you're boning up. I mean, to know exactly each little small town and exactly where they're from and such like that.
And he said, got to get ready for 14.
Yeah, he did say he did say Thompson. That was actually Ryan that said it. And it's true. I mean, you could tell that neither McGuire or Ryan had seen the Gophers much this year, but that's going to happen. I mean, maybe they could have done their homework a little bit more. I don't know. One funny comment from McGuire, Sam, that I guess not funny, but one of the callers brought it up just before he got on the air, was the guy that's when McGuire said, I don't know, but I think this Bobby Jackson is the most valuable player in the Big Ten. Yeah, they gave him that award a couple of weeks ago.
Alert the media.
Alert the media. Have you heard about the Lindbergh baby? Let's take another one last call here. Ron, you are on the Fan.
Comment.
Hello.
Hey, little 2-part question here.
Okay.
Nail biter.
Yeah, no
nail biter. When Charles Thomas or Trevor Winter got the ball under the basket, how come they didn't slam? They went up for the layup and it bounced off the rim and Clemson got it. And
okay,
is that something Clem doesn't condone showboating?
Well, obviously not. Courtney James, every time he gets the ball inside, he tries to slam dunk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I guess it dictates what the defense is playing. If they got their hands in the air and they feel they can get a foul and maybe not get the basket with a slam dunk, maybe a fade and try to bounce it off the backboard, that's what they'll do.
Oh, because I mean, like that one with Trevor Winter. I mean, he was like by himself.
Yeah.
He laid it up and
that wasn't pretty.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, Sam, I know what he's talking about because I said that a couple times. I mean, the Gophers gave up. They gave up 2 baskets in the first half on travels by James. He had 2. He had 2 go into the hole right up the gut of the lane. Had slam dunk opportunities, was called for traveling, and then he mentioned the Winter one, the first possession. I think it was the first possession of the second half when Winter had it right underneath, and he just tried to just flip it in instead of aggressively putting it in. So I understand what he was talking about. There were a couple of times where you have to wonder why they didn't. Let's put the ball in the hole. A couple of times they missed buckets from right underneath when they probably should have slam dunked.
Yeah, a couple notes, Common. 29,000 plus were here today, and I think you saw a lot of the fans that had vested interest in the game were Minnesota fans. It was the 30th win, of course, for Minnesota. Can you believe you would see a Minnesota basketball team have 30 wins in one season? And the 200 for Clem Haskins at the University of Minnesota.
Absolutely. So, here we go. Bring them on.
Yeah,
Iowa State, bring them on.
You know what, Common?
What?
They won convincingly in the second round.
Yep.
They won the nail biter, and they did it for, in each game they played. They didn't have the similar games. They tried to up tempo early in this game. It became more of a half-court game when it got more tense in the second half into the 2 overtimes. This team can play any way they want, and they've won 30 games doing it.
And you know what we say here back in Minnesota?
Bring them on.
Bring them on.
Bring them on, mate.
Thanks, Sammy Sigelman.
I'll talk to you.
All right, beautiful. I appreciate that. Sam Sigelman reporting from San Antonio. Want to thank Sam. Want to thank Flip Saunders, Chad Hartman, both checking in from Detroit, Michigan. Final score, the Minnesota Golden Gophers in double overtime. They defeat Clemson 90-84. They advance to the Elite Eight. They will take on the winner of the Iowa State-UCLA game. 2 minutes to go in the first half. It's Iowa State leading UCLA 35-25. I'm Dan Cole. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 1:30. Saturday, our Gopher pregame show will start at, the Gophers are scheduled for a 2:40 start. So our pregame show will begin roughly 2:15, and our postgame show immediately following the conclusion of the ball game. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Chad Hartman back here with you in the fan to talk about my good friends who work and own the Fireplace Center. It was early in the winter when I knew I had 4 or 5 months to go, and I was thinking, how am I going to get through this winter? Well, I called the Fireplace Center, which is located out on I-394 across from Ridgedale, and it's open 7 days a week, by the way, and they hooked me up with one of their best gas inserts. They feature the area's widest assortment of fireplaces and related accessories, which include wood burning and gas fireplace, if you want to go the wood burning side, gas inserts, gas.
Is there a lot of Gopher UCLA fans walking around getting into fistfights?
Yeah, I haven't actually been to the Riverwalk today, but yeah, like I've said in the past, there's been a lot of Gopher fans.
Yeah, that's outstanding. That's good to see. What we just talked a little bit about with Michelle about the Gophers, not much. What's your gut feeling on Eric Harris today?
Well, we're not going to know much until the Gophers reach Alamo Dome at about 1:15 today. He told me that there's no way in heck. He told me this yesterday. There's no way in heck he could play if the game was yesterday afternoon.
Right.
And he couldn't shoot. He couldn't dribble. He couldn't do anything. They obviously won't start him. He may, they'll probably, if things aren't going well initially in the game, I think they're going to. Clem Haskins is going to attempt to bring him off the bench and pray, because I don't know how effective he's going to be offensively, but I think what they're going to really miss, especially in this game, is his defense, because 2 quick guards UCLA has, Cameron Dollar and Toby Bailey. It's no secret that the Minnesota backcourt's the best defensive backcourt in the country.
Right.
And when you take away one half of that backcourt, I think it hurts your team defensively.
What do you think about my theory that Bobby Jackson at point guard's a better matchup against UCLA than Eric Harris would have been?
I totally disagree. Totally disagree. No, they need. Bobby Jackson is not a great point guard.
No, he's not.
Bobby Jackson's a good off guard that can drive, that can shoot from the outside, that can push the ball up, but he can't control the tempo of the game like an Eric Harris can, and that's what you need against UCLA. You saw what Iowa State did with UCLA on Friday. They went up 46-30 with about 16 minutes to go in the game, although UCLA forced overtime and eventually won the game. Up until that point, Iowa State controlled the tempo of the game, and that's what you need when you play UCLA. You need to get them frustrated, both offensively and defensively. You need them to start bickering at each other. Interesting statistic: when J.R. Henderson, their power forward, scores 14 or more points, UCLA's 15-0. And although that statistics can be just thrown out there and meaningless, I think the valid point about that is J.R. Henderson's a very talented and very moody player,
and when he's not scoring, he starts bickering. He gets all over his coaches. He gets all over his teammates. For instance, last year in the loss against Princeton, J.R. Henderson wouldn't go into the game. Jim Herrick asked him to go in the game. He says, "No, I don't feel well." He typifies the very talented yet moody UCLA Bruin team. They are, and once they start getting on each other, in that sense, they're in trouble. And you need a point guard to control the tempo of the game. And Bobby Jackson, although he's a terrific player, he scored 36 points the other night, 9 rebounds, and in 17-plus minutes, he had to, when he was put in as a point guard, he had no assist. And I understand that the offensive switch was to give Sam Jacobson and Bobby Jackson the shot and really and not really feed it inside. You still need to have other players get the ball. And I think Eric Harris is a more advantageous point guard in that situation.
How do you see the matchup on the inside? We keep hearing, every team that comes up to play the Gophers says, this is a physical club, and we're ready for it. And the rap on the West Coast ball clubs is that a physical team can beat them. I don't buy that with this UCLA team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you mentioned I caught the tail end of Michelle's visit with you, and you mentioned California.
Right.
California is a physical team.
Yeah.
And Stanford's a physical team. Arizona is not as physical as they were in the past, but they're not soft inside. Bramlett had a great game against Kansas last night. Jelani McCoy and J.R. Henderson, more so Jelani McCoy, are physical players. Jelani McCoy blocks shots like you wouldn't believe.
Right.
I don't think that's going to pose a problem for UCLA. I think they are at their best when they run the ball truthfully. However, they can go inside. They can, and they get a lot of offensive rebounds. Jelani McCoy and J.R. Henderson get a lot of offensive rebounds. So that's something to look for Gopher fans.
What do you got coming up? We got a pregame show at 2 o'clock, and you've got some stuff lined up for us at 2 to 2:45 this afternoon.
Yeah, we'll be on from 2 o'clock to about to the 2:40 tip, and I'll have a chance to talk with John and Charles Thomas. Both Thomases are starting today. John Thomas, who is, I think, disappointed with his efforts in Friday's game against Clemson. He didn't have the best game of his life, but a win's a win. And Charles Thomas, who will be starting in the backcourt with Bobby Jackson, who still has that sore back. And although he's healthy enough to play, we will see how Charles Thomas progresses in this game, because you need to really be healthy against this team, because they're going to push the ball on you. And so we'll talk to both those guys, and I believe we'll also hear Chad Hartman's conversation with Eric Harris as of yesterday, and I will update everybody on the Eric Harris watch. As I said, we'll know more when the team arrives at Williams Arena, at Alamo Dome at 1:15 today, and we will kick it off with Common at 2 o'clock. We'll bring you to the tip at 2:40, and right after the game, I'll join Common live from Alamo Dome, and where we give you more of the team's reaction to the win or loss. And I'm sure everybody's excited back in the Twin Cities for the 9 o'clock return trip to the Williams Arena to welcome the Gophers back, win or lose. And, of course, Common's got the big game of the night for a championship.
North, Stillwater. I'm all a titter. I can't wait. So that's what's going on. Appreciate you taking the time out this morning, and we will be talking to you again this afternoon.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, Sam. Sam Sigelman joining us live from San Antonio. That report from Sam has been brought to us by Courtyard by Marriott, the hotel designed by business travelers.
Chance for me to go out there and play.
Brought to you by the Sports Page Bar and Grill.
We're going to have a tough game with you at UCLA. UCLA is a solid ball club.
We're definitely looking forward to the challenge. We faced physical players before, and, we're looking forward to the matchup. We don't shy away from physical play, even though, that's the talk about West Coast players. We're looking forward to the matchup, and we'll see.
And Courtyard by Marriott, the hotel designed by business travelers.
This is a very, very good ball club, very explosive team,
And if we don't really get back on defense, this team will probably score 100 points. So we're going to try to find a way to muster up enough energy to come out and play after playing 50 minutes of tough basketball against an outstanding ball club for Clemson.
Minnesota has won the Big Ten Conference.
Bring 'em on! Greetings and good afternoon, everybody, from Studio A here at our KFAN studios in Bloomington. I'm Dan Cole along with Eric Webster. Hello. 40 minutes from now, it's less than 40 minutes from now, it's the top-seeded and 30-1 Minnesota, or 30-3 Minnesota Golden Gophers against the second-seeded and 24-7 UCLA Bruins. It's the Elite Eight. At stake, of course, Eric, is a trip to the Final Four next weekend in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and the big story on this afternoon's game has got to be the Eric Harris situation. Once again, we really don't know what it's going to feel like, his shoulder that is, until after he goes out on the court, which he's doing right now, takes a shoot around. When he's done, he's going to go to the coach, and he's going to say, well, I'm going to play or I'm not going to play. At that point, the coach, Clem Haskins, has got to say, I'm taking that with a grain of salt, because he's going to say he wants to play no matter what. It's going to be interesting to see if Eric Harris plays or not. And if he doesn't, how well the Gophers match up.
Yeah, absolutely. Bobby Jackson would move over to the point. Charles Thomas would get the start at the off-guard spot. They would use Quincy Lewis even at the point sometime. And the youngster, Aaron Stauber, who has not seen much playing time all year long. To find out more about the situation with Eric Harris's shoulder and just a general feel for what's happening at Alamo Dome, we now go to Sammy Sigelman of the Fan, who is in San Antonio. Sammy.
Gentlemen.
How are you this afternoon?
Very good, thank you.
Very good. The tension's so thick, I'm assuming you could cut it with a knife? I had to get my first cliche of the day in, by the way.
Yeah, I guess so, Common. Yeah, there's some tension, and I think a lot has to do with the Gophers point guard, Eric Harris, who, as you said, his right shoulder was injured in Friday night's win over Clemson, and it's been diagnosed now as a bruise and a sprain, and coming off the team bus this afternoon as the Gophers arrived here about an hour ago, I asked Eric Harris if the shoulder feels better today compared to yesterday.
It's all right.
What do you think?
I'm going to give it a shot.
You going to give it a shot?
That's all I can do.
You going to start?
I mean, I'm going to see, do warm-ups and stuff.
That's Eric Harris. And they did warm up. They just left the court moments ago. A lot of grimaces. A lot of smiles from Harris, so we'll find out more probably about 2:30 when the starting lineups become official, although expect at this point that Charles Thomas and Bobby Jackson will be the starting guards for the Gophers.
Now, Eric Harris, what kind of a treatment, Sammy, did they give him? They talk about some type of electronic stimulation and ice packs. I mean, I suppose that's they did that all yesterday and all day today.
Yeah, he went through. He under my understanding, they had some cortisone shots to soften the pain, and he also went through some treatment as far as rehabilitating moves with the shoulder with the trainer Roger Shipper. And he said to me, yeah, it feels better, but we'll see how it goes. And he dribbled the ball, he shot the ball with his right arm this afternoon in their shoot around, which I said concluded moments ago. And although there were some grimaces, there was also some smiles. So take it for what you want, for what you believe with that.
Now, were you able?
Although I doubt he's going to be a big, important portion of the Gophers' offense today.
Were you able to get a feel from Klementov? You had a chance to chat with him.
Yeah, I will. We'll get to that in moments.
Okay. All right, you'll do that, Webby. I think that despite the fact a lot of people, including myself, have put a lot of emphasis into the health of Eric Harris, and if they have Eric Harris, they're a very good team. Without him, can they get any further? I still think they can. I think they can. You can look at this injury in a couple of different ways, I guess. You could say that if he can't play, well, they lose one of their better ball handlers, the guy that runs the offense, one of their sparks, one of their best defensive players, or you could say the team rallies around these kind of things. We've seen it happen in other sports before, where teams where a starting player has been injured at a critical juncture of the season, and the team has rallied around that. It would be hard to see Bobby Jackson playing any better than he did the other night, or Sam Jacobson, but if that is the case, I think they're both going to have to step it up even another notch if that's possible.
We were discussing this morning on my show with the number of callers and the number of guests, and The one thing that I've come away with is if I was coaching this club right now, regardless of what he says or regardless of how it feels, I go out there with Charles Thomas and Bobby Jackson and the other players, and I see how it goes. Here's what I use Eric Harris for. One, if I'm not winning and I'm not playing well with the lineup that's out there, I bring Eric Harris in if he says he's okay and see if he can do anything. The one thing he will do in a situation where they're losing and he brings him in is just what you said. He comes into the game in the second half and they're losing. All of a sudden it's a different attitude. He's going to try and play a little harder. Maybe it gives him a spark. But as far as him physically being able to actually give the Gophers anything, well, that remains to be seen. But I think you're absolutely right. Clem could use that as a reservoir weapon.
About 32 minutes until kickoff, till the opening tap at Alamo Dome, the first game of the...
The thing that the Gophers need Eric Harris for is to set the pace. UCLA likes to run the ball. I think that was very evident on Friday night's Iowa State when they were down by 16 with 16 minutes to go in the game. They pressed Iowa State and caused a lot of turnovers and quickened the tempo of the game. Therefore, you do need a point guard. You do need an Eric Harris to slow it down. Bobby Jackson has said, I'm not comfortable with a point guard. I'm better at off guard. And you do need that field general, if you want to use that term. There's a cliche for you, Common.
It's one of my favorite cliches,
that guy
too.
To set the pace. I did ask Clem Haskins as the team came off the bus if Eric Harris is going to be ready today.
We're going to wait to shoot around and see right before the game before I make a decision. 10 minutes before the game starts, we can go.
And like I said, 10 minutes from game time is 2:30, so we will know at that point what the status of Eric Harris as far as the starting lineup goes, but I don't foresee him being a very big part of the Gophers' offense today. And again, they do need his defense. They do need somebody on Cameron Dollar.
Sammy, we'll talk to you a little bit later in the program.
Sounds terrific.
All right, perfect. That's Sammy Sigelman checking in from San Antonio, Texas, where he is at Alamo Dome getting ready for the Elite Eight matchup between the UCLA Bruins and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I'm Dan Cole along with Eric Webster. Let's do this. We'll take a break at 2:10, 30 minutes before the tap. And when we come back, Dan Barreiro of the Star Tribune and, of course, of the FAN, the Savvy Afternoon Gabathon, he will join us from Alamo Dome.
Something big is always happening downtown. Let's talk to Mike Jensen of Rudy.
Downtown Pontiac.
And what about new Pontiacs?
Downtown Pontiac has 5.9% financing for up to 60 months. And that's on every new 97 Grand Am and every Sunfire Coupe and convertible, too.
5.9% financing on new cars and like new Grand Ams from $11,995. Something big really is happening at downtown Pontiac. Hennepin and Washington, where there's always plenty of free parking.
Hi, my name's Susan, and I'm here to tell you about a little problem I recently had with bills. Well, not bills in general, but one particular bill, my ex-husband Bill. You see, last year, Bill and I decided to get a divorce. Now I'm a single mom trying to raise my 3 kids by myself, which means a whole bunch of new bills in my life. So many that I couldn't pay them off. I felt helpless and didn't know where to turn. I even thought about declaring bankruptcy. But instead of panicking, I decided to call Consumer Credit Counseling Service. They were really understanding and answered a lot of my initial questions over the phone. Then we set up an appointment where we went through my finances and created a sound spending plan and repayment schedule that helped me get back on my feet. In fact, they helped thousands of people regain their peace of mind and avoid bankruptcy. At least now I know how to manage all of those annoying bills.
This ad was placed by a nonprofit foundation and paid for in part by contributions from creditors. Call the Consumer Credit Counseling Service at 1-800-388-2227.
A&E presents a world premiere biography. Judy Garland.
Hiya, boy!
She lived a life more triumphant and more heartbreaking than any movie.
They didn't mean to addict her. They were trying to get a picture finished.
Through it all, Judy Garland roared back with a spirit and voice that made her a legend. Judy Garland, a remarkable biography special. Sunday at 8 Eastern, 9 Pacific. Only on A&E. Time well spent.
I try to instill in my players, and I tell them day to day, injuries are part of the game. That's something you have to accept. And when it happened to you, if you have quality players and young men with character, that someone will pick themselves up and pick the team up and help you win. So tomorrow night, we got to pick ourselves up, and each one must step up and play even better in order to have a chance to win.
Those are comments from Minnesota Golden Gopher head basketball coach Clem Haskins as we lead up to The Elite Eight matchup between the top-seeded Minnesota Golden Gophers, the top seed in the Midwest, against number 2 seed UCLA. They tap at 2:40 at Alamo Dome. And we now bring Dan Barreiro into the conversation, who is courtside. And Mr. Barreiro, thanks for joining us here this afternoon on the pregame program.
Hello.
What's your gut feeling on the Eric Harris situation? Is he going to try? You watched him in shoot-arounds. How did he look?
Well, he shot well. In fact, it was kind of, I don't know, Sammy talked about it. It was kind of a funny scene that every time he took a shot and made it, the Gopher cheering section would kind of come up with a roar as if they were sort of like counting every shot he took and paying attention to his every move. And frankly, he looked better shooting than he has in a long time.
Would be a plus.
The problem is that I think he is going to try, and the word is the pain is a lot better. I would still be stunned, and I've been stunned before, but I'd be surprised if he's going to be able to stand up as a as a major factor, just because it's hard for me to believe that in one day it's going to make that big of a difference in terms of lateral movement and getting in a game where you got a lot of starting and stopping and contorting your body, I should say, things like that. I don't know. I mean, it will be obviously one of the big storylines to watch, but and clearly they are going to give him a chance to play. And if you'd asked me yesterday, I didn't think that was even going to be an option based on what we saw.
If he is, let's say he's not a factor. Let's say he comes in, he can't take it,
right.
And then they have to go to Jackson at the point and
right.
Charles Thomas at the off guard. Can they beat UCLA?
I don't think so. I think they have to get something from Harris in order. If you're asking me, is it impossible for them to win? No, I don't think it is, because I think you reduce it to one game. If let's say Jackson and Jacobson just go ape like they did the other day and just go, just out of control hitting shots. It's possible, but I think it's going to be difficult to do it because they've got to. There's so many ways in which it changes the way they have to play, especially defensively. Charles Thomas is a decent defensive player, but Harris has been a very good defensive player. He's in the game. You're able to put him on Dollar. Jackson doesn't have to chase Dollar all around and handle the ball and score, which they're going to need from him. And, I just think that's, even if you reduce it to one game, it's asking an awful lot.
Dan, do you think that with Bobby Jackson at point guard, it changes the game dramatically from an offensive standpoint for the Gophers?
Well, I think it can. The problem, the one flaw that Jackson has, and it's part of the reason why Harris became the number one ball handler, although Jackson actually still ended up with more assists, was that in a game like this, UCLA loves to run. That is their game. They love freewheeling, open court basketball. And I happen to think if Minnesota tries to play that way against these guys, they have a chance to get obliterated. And that the way to frustrate UCLA, as we've talked about, Coley and I, the last couple days, is to slow the game a little bit. Jackson, I think, has a harder time keeping that idea in his head when he's actually out on the court. I think Jackson kind of gets going, gets in the flow, and is such a fast player himself that he presses and pushes the ball in situations where the Gophers would be better served, kind of pulling it back out. Harris was better at that. And that's the danger I see in having Jackson. Jackson obviously can handle the ball. He often, though, does not get the team into the offense with the success that Harris has had. That's, to me, why, it does make a difference. And if they pressure the Gophers, which I expect they will, then they have a real problem, because I don't think any of those other guys are great ball handlers. Thomas, Lewis, they're okay, but if you put heavy heat on them, they're not guys who are accustomed to having the ball. And when you had Jackson and Harris both available, they could both handle it, which obviously helps you in dealing with a team that likes to press.
We also talked yesterday about the front court matchups and how in the Clemson game, until overtime, basically John Thomas, Trevor Winter, and Courtney James are basically non-existent.
Right.
The Gophers can't afford another performance like that, or they're done.
No, that's exactly right. Let's put it this way. I think they have won almost every game this year playing a certain style of basketball, which, although it was still, in terms of scoring, perimeter-oriented and guard and forward-oriented, that everyone got involved in the offense to the degree that they would have, they averaged about 15, 16 assists a game.
Right.
It was number one in the league. one of the best numbers in the country. If you look back at the victory the other night, they had 8 assists, which tells you that it was basically 2 guys going one-on-one. And for a given game, that may have been the only way they were going to win, considering how the forwards were playing and even the bench players were playing. I don't think that's the way they can win today. I mean, the pecking order is still there. Jackson and Jacobson are going to take most of the shots. That's the way it should be. But I think if they try to play that one-on-one kind of game against these guys, it will not work. And, that would be my other fear, is that they're going to forget what has put them in this position offensively. And what's put them in it is a decent amount of patience, running when the break was there, but patience when it's not, and not relying on 2 guys just basically jacking up shots going one-on-one, as effective as those 2 guys were doing that the other day.
Another intriguing matchup, I think, and that will be very important, will be the matchup between Sam Jacobson and O'Bannon.
Yeah, not Ed, Charles.
Charles.
Yeah, right, that's true. Charles O'Bannon has had kind of a strange season where early he was playing fairly pig-like and had a talk, I wrote a little bit about it today, he had a talk with his father and his brother, who is Ed.
Right.
And they basically told him, look, what are you doing? And he has become a very consistent player since then. He's going to be a tough matchup for Sam, certainly tougher than the Greg Buckner matchup, and he actually had problems guarding Buckner. So you're right. That's an important matchup for this team. I think that, again, you will see the Gophers try to run some, but I really believe, you saw the Iowa State game, Coley,
right.
and you go back to the Princeton game last year, they are a far less effective team if you force them to play half court. Doesn't mean they're not capable of it. If you force them into that kind of game, they don't like it. They're not a grinded out kind of team, and although they made a terrific comeback, I put a lot of that on Iowa State, frankly.
I do too.
Not knowing what to do with the prosperity they had and the lead that they had established. I think that's a team that can be frustrated.
As we let you go, your prediction, what do you think is going to happen today?
Well, I'm gonna have to do an asterisk with it. If they can get 20 decent minutes out of Harris, I think they will win this game. I will say let's say 75-70. If they don't have them, I think they lose a relatively close game, but that they lose. I think they have to get something legitimate out of Harris. Maybe not the normal amount of minutes, maybe not the normal amount of performance, but something to. And if they do, I think they can win this game.
We appreciate your assistance.
Right,
enjoy the game, and we'll look forward to reading your stuff tomorrow.
We'll see you back in the office tomorrow.
Beautiful.
Or Monday, I guess I should say.
Absolutely. Thanks. That's Dan Barreiro of the Star Tribune. At Alamo Dome, I'm getting a little tense myself.
I'm very tense. It's going to be, well, he's absolutely right. There's an asterisk next to everything on predicting this. By the way, I'd like to remind everybody that right now at the Northwest Inn, which is in the northeast corner of 694 and Highway 81, Mike Woodley and KFAN is down there today. You can watch the game. Still got time to get down there on 2 6x8-foot televisions. They have an appetizer buffet, cigars.
Giveaways.
KFAN and Gopher merchandise will be given away. It's only $10. So head on down there. You can call 5